Now available in paperback and coming to Kindle Unlimited. John Haynes, Dark Succubus. The man who rules the world is tempted by a sultry succubus in this all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, Dark Succubus in paperback or pre-order on Kindle Unlimited today. Last week, there was another tragic mass shooting here in America. And this mass shooting, which took place at the Virginia Beach Municipal Center in Virginia, led to 11 people losing their lives who worked at the Municipal Center and one contractor who was there to file a permit for a project he was working on. And sadly, all of these deaths were the result of a Dwayne Craddock, an engineer who was working there at the Municipal Center. And when I take a critical look at the actions of Dwayne Craddock, I see an individual who fits right within the pattern and profile I described in numerous videos I have done regarding mass shooters and in my book, The Man Crisis. And when I take a critical examination of your Dwayne Craddock, I clearly see a man who was in crisis and a man who was in desperate need of help in some way, shape, or form. Now, some people are saying that they don't know what motivated your Dwayne Craddock to go out here and participate in the mass murder of those 12 people. But when I take a critical look at your Dwayne Craddock, I see the motivations clear to me as day as related to why he went out here and participated in this mass murder. Now, many of his co-workers stated that your Dwayne Craddock was a quote-unquote nice guy. And when I hear the term nice guy thrown out about people like these mass shooters, it triggers something in my mind that lets me know this is one of the motivations for these individuals participating in these kind of murders. And when it comes down to your quote-unquote nice guy, he's nice on the surface, he's pleasant, he's quiet, he's unassuming, but on the inside of many of these nice guys, a lot of these men are simmering and boiling in anger. And I believe that your Dwayne Craddock was simmering and boiling in some anger, and that anger had turned into rage as a result of your Dwayne Craddock's marriage winding up failing and his wife leaving him 2 years ago. And I believe because his wife left him 2 years ago, your Dwayne Craddock was suffering in silence because he did not know how to navigate through his emotions. And I don't believe that this man had the coping skills in order to deal with his wife leaving him. And I believe that this is one of the things that led to your Dwayne Craddock falling into a state, as I see it, of mental disarray. And I'm not saying he's mentally ill. I'm saying he was in a state of mental disarray because when it comes down to a man who is being divorced and his wife leaving him, a lot of these guys, they just can't cope with it because it's almost as bad as losing that spouse if they had died. And a lot of these guys, they can't deal with the rejection, they can't deal with the pain, and they can't deal with the loss of that spouse. And I believe that your Dwayne Craddock, he was trying to escape dealing with those issues as related to the loss of his wife, and he was trying to do that through working out. Unfortunately, it wasn't working out for him because his behavior was clearly becoming more and more erratic because as this man was living in a condominium, he had many cameras set up looking outside at the world. And when I look at that type of behavior, it shows me that his behavior was becoming erratic because only a really erratic person is going to put cameras up outside of their window in their condominium, and they're going to do that because there's something really troubling them. Now, other indicators to me, as some reports have said, was that Dwayne Craddock's behavior was becoming more and more erratic as a result of him getting into scuffles with coworkers, something the man had not done in 15 years. And I believe he was getting into these altercations with people at work, again, as a result of this divorce that had transpired 2 years ago. Because when it comes down to many of these beta males, they will try to suppress their feelings for an extended period of time, unfortunately, as they're packing down their emotions like TNT. What is happening is this is becoming like a powder keg of TNT, and all it takes is for one thing to go wrong to spark that anger, and that anger to wind up burning up and then eventually exploding. And I believe that your Dwayne Craddock was a classic time bomb, like I talk about in The Man Crisis, and he was simmering and boiling in anger over this failed marriage, and then compounded that with problems at work, and eventually this man wound up exploding. And the reason why he wound up exploding was because, like most nice guys, they have to live in a smooth world. And he was trying to live in a smooth world for years, and then once his world got rough and once his world got hard, this is where your Dwayne Craddock wound up losing it. And that's when he decided that he was going, because his life was being destroyed, he was going to go out here and destroy the lives of others. This is classic textbook beta male behavior, because when the beta male's smooth world is completely disrupted and they cannot get the world to work the way they want it to, they want to destroy the world around them. And Dwayne Craddock probably thought, oh, my marriage is destroyed, I'm having troubles at the job, and he started down a road to self-destructive behavior by tendering his resignation from a job he had for 15 years in good standing. And the reason why he tendered that resignation through an email was because this man was deeply frustrated because his smooth world was not going the way he wanted to, and he wanted to go out here and he was self-destructing, and then he wanted to destroy the lives of his co-workers, and he wanted to destroy the lives of anybody around him. This man was deeply troubled, and most people probably didn't understand how this man was troubled because they thought, oh, he's quiet, he's unassuming, never asking a critical question. Hey, we need to take this Dwayne aside and talk to him. He's been here for 15 years. We need to find out what's going on with him, because it's clear that before this he had no problems, and it was clear to me that this man in crisis desperately needed some help. Unfortunately, because most people cannot really see the warning signs about nice guys because they are quiet and unassuming, they cannot see where the danger lies with many of these beta males. Because a lot of times with these beta males, they are so busy trying to not upset people and trying to just deal with it themselves, they don't understand that they're in over their heads and they desperately need help. And I believe that Dwayne Craddock desperately needed help in dealing with things, because when it came down to your Dwayne Craddock, he just did not know how to cope with the fact that his wife had left him, and he didn't know how to cope with the fact that these little minor troubles on the job, they were things that he could possibly navigate through with a little bit of help. Now, when it comes down to his failed marriage, I believe Dwayne Craddock desperately, he needed a men's group to talk to, because a men's group of men who have been through divorce and been through a relationship failing, they could have given him some guidance and let him know that he was probably going to be in a better place if he wasn't having to pay anything like alimony or spousal support, and that he could just go out and find another woman. Because when it comes down to a lot of beta males, they make this woman their world, and when their world leaves, that's when they want to destroy the world around them. This guy was trying to bring things together. He was probably trying to go to the gym, get his body straight, but the whole thing is his mind wasn't right, and he didn't understand how to get his mind right. I believe that he desperately needed the help of many men's groups, or listening to many of the guys here on YouTube, like I have listened to, like Terrence Pop, Sandman, Turf Flinging Monkey, T-Mott back in the day, Dan Freeman. If it wasn't for those, listening to those men's channels, Rick Scorpio, Mr. Superboy, many others, I would have been in the same position that this guy would have possibly, because I remember myself in 2008 losing my job, and if it wasn't for God telling me to keep going, and then later on listening to many of these brothers on YouTube, I would have probably been in a bad place myself. And I understand where this guy was coming from, because I understand the crisis he was in, because I was in that crisis myself, and I was able to get out of that crisis with the guidance of God. And I started focusing on doing other things, and I also started focusing on the positives of things. But when it comes down to a lot of these beta males, they don't have that support system, and they don't know that there's that support system of men out there who want to help them get to a better place, so that they don't have to go out here and participate in one of these violent mass shootings and take other people's lives, because it's not our right to take somebody's life, because our life is in a temporary period of trouble. What we have to do is rely on God to give guidance to get out of that jam and make efforts to move our lives forward. And that's the whole thing with a lot of these beta males who are in crisis. They can't see a light at the end of the tunnel. And I believe that your Dwayne Craddock couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And because he did not see a light at the end of the tunnel, he went out here trying to destroy his life and then destroy the lives of others, because he couldn't see any hope for his life. I mean, he couldn't focus on the positives. Like, he had a very good job. He was making very good money. And even though his wife had left him, he could not go on to do other things. I mean, if he was already in shape brother and in a good place economically, he could have picked up with his life, gone and found him another woman, and found himself another life. Or he could have gone his own way, and he could have found actualizing his potential further. But because this man did not have a strong male support group and did not have male life skills or male survival skills, I believe that this is why this man participated in this mass shooting. Now, some people are trying to bury this story because your Dwayne Craddock is a black man, and usually the narrative they like to push of this as related to mass shooters is related to white males. However, when it comes down to mass shooters, they can be of any race, because when it comes down to men here in the West, it is the way they have been raised that leads to them becoming these beta males, and it's the way they have been raised that leads to them becoming these mass shooters. And because these men have been raised in an extremely gynocentric way, this makes it where they have the possibility of becoming a mass shooter. And without the guidance of men to give them those male life skills and those male survival skills, what happens to a lot of those guys is they fall through the cracks like your Dwayne Craddock did, and they wind up simmering and boiling in an anger that eventually explodes into this rage. And as a result of that rage, these men go out here and participate in a spectrum of horrifically violent behaviors. And these violent behaviors destroy the lives of not only the individuals like your Dwayne Craddock, but they traumatize the families of all of those who suffer as a result of them murdering their loved ones, and murdering their loved ones because these men were never taught how to navigate through their feelings, how to get through a troubled period, and how to overcome a personal tragedy or a personal crisis in their life. Now, when it comes down to a spouse leaving you, it is just like a death in the family, just like losing a job is like a death in the family. And if there's no support system there for someone, they can wind up participating in destructive behaviors like your Dwayne Craddock. And the thing that really, I believe, was the thing that led to your Dwayne Craddock being a man in crisis was believing that he had to do it on his own. And when it comes down to men, we need to understand we cannot do it on our own. When we are going through troubles, we need to go get the guidance of God, and we need to go find other men out here to be a support system, because without that guidance and advice from those men, you're going to wind up trying to fix things yourself or trying to fix a bad situation, when sometimes, in some cases, there is no fixing a bad situation or a bad relationship, and all you have to do is surrender and let that relationship go in order to move forward towards something else better God has for you. And this is what I believe Dwayne Craddock couldn't do as related to his wife. He couldn't let his wife go and surrender the power and let her go on her way and then go on to do better things. And that's why this man in crisis, I believe, participated in this horrific act of violence that took the lives of 12 innocent people and wound up costing him his own life. If you want to learn more about troubled individuals like Dwayne Craddock and what motivates them to participate in these horrific acts of violence like mass shootings, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle formats, and you can also pick it up on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Barnes & Noble. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.